there, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about Navy SEALs for What the Hell Is This? Now, Navy SEAls is an infamous film from the early 90s that starred Charlie Sheen and Michael Biehn that came out just as Orion, the studio that made it, was starting to fold. This was just before Silence Alarms came out from Orion, and then the studio just folded right after that. They had their biggest hit and then the studio folded straight away. This came out just before that, and this was like one of those infamous films. Was like, if this is what they're making, no wonder they're losing money, because they spent like a lot of money on it, and it did not do well. It was critically planned. It just was like, instantly, it was like, what are you doing with this? What is going on? And the reality is, it's just a bad film, and there's no reason for it to be this bad, and it was a film that went through a lot of directors before Louis Teague got in. Louis Teague had started off with Roger Corman. He did The Woman in Red and Alligator, so he started off well. He made Cujo, which is Stephen King adaptation, which is a nice little film. So early on in his career, he was a director putting up good credits. He was making good films. And then he got promoted into like bigger films like Joan and Isle, which was a Romancing Stone sequel, which nobody liked. But it was that thing where basically when they gave him more money, it was not like a thing where some directors, they get more money, and if they're like directors who can stand up to themselves, like James Cameron, they can use that money and actually do something really good. This was a case of, it was a director who was used to kind of lower budget, and he couldn't really, I don't think he really found much joy in the larger budget film areas. It just didn't really work for him. And in the earlier films, he had stuff like John Seals writing scripts for him, so he had someone good writing scripts for him. And this thing, he was having like a bad script being rewritten, and it went through various writers, all of whom and didn't seem to do work for anybody. And it's a film with lots of scenes in it that feel like they're making some of this stuff up as they go, and no one has a clue what's going on. And there's a film apparently that was taken over by the actors halfway through production to try and salvage it because it was going so badly. And the actors were trying to rewrite some of the scenes as well, and the actors hated the film because it was just like disaster. The producer and the director hated each other so much. The director banned the producer from the set, and that's not good. It was just a complete mess. It was one of those films that was just, everything was telling you, this is not going to be a good film. And I think basically the big problem they really have is they never figured out a script is one of the biggest problems. The script is just basic. It's like, there's so many relics for the script, and the film itself is basic. And it's like, what? All these reps for this? And also, there's a lot of miscasting going on. The only person who's well cast is Michael Biehn. He played a Navy SEAL in The Best Before, and he's doing his best. You can tell he's trying to make this damn thing work. He's playing the guy who's in charge of the SEALs. He's trying his best to make scenes work that are stupid. Throughout this film, you can see why he dislikes the film, because you can tell he's trying his best to make this film work, and nothing's working. And he has to act with Charlie Sheen, who's phoning it in. This is a weird thing where Charlie Sheen plays a guy who's a rebel of the crew, which is that thing is like, why would someone this stupid and insane ever be a Navy SEAL in the first place? Why would they let him in? Because he's never follows orders, when the whole time in Navy SEALs is you follow orders because it's a pre-planned operation, and you need to know what whoever else is doing. You have to listen all the time. That's a guy who just does what he wants. That doesn't make sense. Why he's ever there? He annoys everybody. He screws up everybody. He gets people killed, and also, it's an astonishingly boring performance. He's really tedious in it. He's really phoning it in. All the jokes are terrible from him. He obviously doesn't want to be there. which is not surprising considering the production this film went through. But it's one of those films. I think this is one of those films that where Charlie Sheen went from being like a potential movie star in Hollywood's eyes to being, oh, he doesn't care. Where he started his descent towards direct-to-video and TV here, because before this he was a guy from Platoon and Wall Street, and he was doing films, and some of them worked, some didn't, but he still had some goodwill. And then not long after this, the goodwill started to pass away. He was still getting big paychecks, but there was a sense of he'd been in some films where he was obviously trying, and then suddenly seemed to not try anymore and just pick up the checks. And this is one of those films, and it was like, why are you treating this film so cavalier? Cause it's just tedious in the film. It's just boring, and it obviously doesn't give a crap. But the thing is, if it was just this film, you'd think, okay, it was a bad production, but it was the start of him doing that in a lot of films. And he's in most of the film. You have to suffer through him the whole film, and it's like, and I think he takes what would have just been a forgettable bad film to being a truly awful film. It's just Charlie Sheen effect, because he's really bad in this film. There's other actors who you'll know from the 80s, Rick Rossovich, there's Bill Paxton, there's Dennis Haysbert. They're all in it, all playing stock characters. A lot of whom, like you have Bill Paxton, and he's playing the guy who's a sniper and doesn't say anything for the whole film. And it's like, why would you cast Bill Paxton in this part? He's miscast, and Paxton developed gravitas later on in his career. At this point, he was much more known for playing Loudmouth. In this one, he just looks, I'm not sure if there was other stuff in the script that was taken out, but again, he just looks like he wanders in, phones in his performance and leaves. It's like, it's that thing where he's given very little to do, so it's like, well, why do you hire him if you're not going to use his charm? I mean, it's the thing is, he should have been the Charlie Sheen part, and it would have worked. But instead he hired Charlie Sheen. It's that thing is like, the guy over there can do this part better than you can, and everyone knows it. And again, I mean, Michael Biehn looks annoyed by Charlie Sheen through the film, like not just like annoyed for the acting character. He just looks annoyed by him a lot of times, because there's some scenes where you have one actor trying, the actor's just phoning in, and it's like, man, you know, that's how it feels watching it. God knows what it was like behind the scenes, but that's what it feels like watching it. It's like, wow, it's a two-hander scene with one person doing all the acting. Even Joanne Whalley as the journalist, and this is another one of those parts where you pity the actress, because she's like, she's given nothing. She's like playing a part of someone who knows a lot about the Middle East, but then helps the Navy SEALs out, even though they are for the Reaganite regime, Bush regime, that are not exactly helpful to the Middle East. And it's like, it's a non-starter part that doesn't make any sense, because this kind of journalist wouldn't really have anything to do with the American military. And it's like, and then the terrorists are just terrorists. They're just like basically just very basic level movie terrorists. There's nothing to them. There's one guy you see early on, and he appears throughout the film, but he's given no character, no motivation. They say stuff about why people are fighting, as if by saying this it means they're not like just being horribly racist to these countries. But then they have tons of scenes, and then the American military talking about how to defeat them, and it's like, it's so extremely one-sided. And it's like, no matter what you say on the other side, it doesn't work. You have no interest, and your only interest is blowing these guys up for an action scene. That's it. Just be honest about it. But the film floats between these half-assedness scenes everywhere. Like, there's like, obviously someone's interested in what a journalist thinks of this. Someone's interested in what the SEALs were. Someone's interested in this. Someone's interested in that. They try to put it all together into a script, and none of it meshes, because they've all got completely different political views, And the film's not interested in the political views anyway, so it just becomes these bland scenes you have to get through. And then those bland scenes of Charlie Sheen try to be funny, which you have to get through. And the thing is, the SEALs are portrayed as idiots most of the time. They're portrayed as people who love partying and who have no moral authority whatsoever, except for every so often Michael Biehn has to play his character as someone who's concerned about all this stuff, and it's like, yeah, it doesn't match up with other stuff going on in the film. The whole film just feels like it's a mess of various scenes just chucked together and hope for the best. And it just feels like every scene was compromised in some way, and there was tons of stuff, tons of different scripts around, and they just push it together so the base of the film is a hunt for these Stinger missiles. That ultimately it's like, well, can't they just buy more Stinger missiles in the black market, these terrorists? It doesn't seem like them taking these Stinger missiles out of circulation is going to stop anything. But you're meant to be involved in that, and it's like, this is not enough. We know they can get access to more. So it just is like, even when it was just 90s, I could work that out. I haven't seen this film for years, but even then it was like, they can just buy some more. So the whole plot is just like a non-starter, and it's like, well, it seems like a very futile fight to be passionate about. And the film's not really passionate about anything. It's just like there, it just floats there. This is a film that exists, and there's a bunch of action scenes, none of which are involving. They run around, they're shooting, but it feels like the actors do not feel that they're in a war zone. They actually feel that they're playing soldier with each other, with lots of dust around. That's what it feels like. There's no tension. Even when people get killed, there's no tension. Just things happen. And it's just like this kind of blah thing that just is there. Just this mess of a film that's just, ugh. Don't let it touch me, it might infect me with its stupidity. And it's like, it's just very, basically it's an 80s film shot in the early 90s, and it's trying to get the Top Gun audience, which has moved on, the same way they were doing like Delta Force 2 at the same time, and it had bombed as well, and it was like, no, people who watched the Rambo stuff in the 80s had moved on, and it was like, this is very naive. And this film came out when it needed to have pivoted to be a much darker film. Instead, it was just this like weird kind of pro right wing thing that was out of time. It wasn't quite there anymore, and they needed to get the military backing. Had to keep it very patriotic and not be critical, and it felt like it was made from people who supported that kind of right wing agenda, but they didn't have any interest to say about it. Just like, this could be an interesting subject for a film, but we don't know what the film is. And they never figured it out what the film was. And the funny thing is, Navy SEALs pop up in other movies now since then, and usually they have to fictionalise them to a degree, because most soldiers are not photogenic, they're just soldiers. They're people who are focused on their training, that's it. And it always feels just weird when you see them in films. They just feel very off. And I think because they're people with a purpose, but they don't communicate well. So obviously they did one called Act of Valor, which apparently wasn't very good, but I never saw it. They've been doing other films like Warfare, which is apparently Navy SEALs and incursions in Middle East, which I've yet to see. But there's been more films about this subject since this film. Some did well, some haven't. But like, basically there's always been an issue with American films after a certain period, because you can't go full Reaganite right wing, and you can't really go left wing because you can't get the military backing. So it becomes this hodgepodge of films you get, which is kind of half and half. And this film is kind of one of the early examples of that, where it's just like, we can't offend anybody, but we can't really do anything interesting. This is where we start with a certain era of military films, which is why there's not many of them now, because it's like, well, To get military support, you have to basically cut the balls off your own film, and you can't do anything crazy like Apocalypse Now, and you can't really be interesting if you get military support. You need military support to actually make a film with the military, so it becomes this kind of weird no man's land with military films. So as I do find a lot of the military films you see are just very vague and weird. But this film was vague, weird, and really bad. And yeah, I mean, it's like one of those ones. It's not even an interesting bad film. It's just a kind of bad film. It's just weird. Its reputation is more interesting than the actual film itself. So yeah, I mean, it's like it's not one I'll be surprised if I watch this one again. I saw it once in the 90s. I've saw it now, and I've no desire to watch it ever again because it's just not good. There's just nothing there. Hope you enjoyed this video. That's me for now. Bye.